impact on the growth that we anticipate. Next slide, please. If you can skip, okay, hold on right there, please go back. Here we are showing the count of our legacy registrars versus our EPP-based registrars. Currently, we have about 14% of our market is legacy and 84% being our EPP. The ideal for us is to migrate all the registrars into EPP. It makes it much easier for us to operate, function, and manage. And also it gives more transparency and support for the registrars. Next slide, please. We can skip this, is just to see the base of those SLDs. Next slide. Now, no, please go back here. Just one, thank you. Now, the ZACR accreditation status, we have 423 registered or accredited registrars. Then we have 37 currently in testing. Testing means that they are now almost at the tail end of having been formally submitted all the documents like your registrar agreement, your accreditation fees being paid, legal compliance, including technical compliance. It could be one or two documents that are outstanding for that entity to be fully registered. Then we have 117 registrars who are still in application. Again, equally, it could be a little bit more documents that are outstanding. If you look at the spread, which you have the local versus international, we rely very largely on still our local registrars, but you would see that there is a significant number of international registrars, which is 68. It's quite good, and we think it will be growing with .Africa, and it will be growing as the uptake of the .cities grows, and we think that it will change the landscape significantly. Next slide, please. Just by show of numbers and the spread on the continent, we have in Senegal 1 registrar, in Kenya 2, Australia there is 1, in the US there is 17, Canada 13, and Germany 12. And we would like to see the growth of this. And also, you know, I think this cross-border accreditation or proxy accreditation is something that we need to enter into, kind of an MOU to give credence to this and give support and growth to the CCTLDs and registrars on the continent. Next slide. We have an interesting picture for ourselves in South Africa, where the growth of registrars is pretty much depicted by the size of the economy, where the 3 provinces, Gauteng, Western Cape, and KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, are in the lead. And you can, with Gauteng having the highest GDP, followed by KZN, and third being the Western Cape, we see Gauteng with 174 registrars. But the biggest challenge for us today is to try and grow in those smaller areas. If you look at a place like Northern Cape, which is above Western Cape, there is only 1 registrar there, and we think we need to be growing those registrars significantly in that regards. And then on that note, Chair, I think that's it for me as a highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's encouraging to see that this number of local registrars play in the .ZA space, and you also have the cross-border ones. I want to ask Abdallah from KENIC to do an intervention on this. In .KE, do you have cross-border accredited registrars? And do you also, I know that you have National Association. Are you organizing your resellers, those that are not accredited by you? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In Kenya, we don't have cross-border accreditation. Our registrars still have to have local presence. The whole issue was to grow the local capacity of registrars. Maybe as we move forward, we may have to relook at that policy, because now we have a very strong Registrars Association, DREC, as you can see they are represented here. And Kenya is a little bit unique. DREC registers registrars, is an association for registrars, but we also have Kenya Education Network, KENIC, which is also a registrar specifically to deal with the education institutions, because education institutions have their own unique ways, although DREC can still register education institutions. Okay. Then we have TESPOC on board. This is an association for ISPs, and they also the ISPs are registrars because of TESPOC being on board. But the other registrars need to be members of DREC, although it's not enforceable now, but I encourage them to do so. Now, on the issue of accreditation, yes, for you to be a registrar for KENIC, we have to accredit you, but there are two licenses. There's a licensing framework which came up from Communication Authority of Kenya. So now KENIC gives you, basically at KENIC we look at your technical capacity before we accredit you. There are 5,000 Kenya shillings. But then the Communication Authority, because they have cyber security issues and also trying to get details of organizations which operate, there's a licensing framework which is in operation. You pay a one-off fee of 10,000 for 10 years, but an annual renewal which is not payable. So you renew your license each year to give returns of existence to ensure that that organization is not a briefcase. Basically, on resellers, we allow our registrars to deal with the resellers, because we encourage students of universities, the techies who are students at the universities, to also get some money out of domains. They may not meet our criteria of licensing, but they can be resellers for registrars. On the issue of training, which you talked of, every quarter we have training for registrars, and the other interested ICT players are free to attend. So most of the Kenyans in the ICT field in this hall, I'm sure they have attended one or two of our quarterly registrar meetings. Another thing which we do is we make monthly reports to our registrars to show them how they are performing on the registration of domains, what they have registered, their deletions and their net, to ensure that they're also aware of their performance. And what we introduced this year is competitions between registrars. During our quarterly meetings, we give prizes to the person who has registered the highest domain, the person with the least deletions, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to before you leave, has the licensing started or is still in the works? Have you been asked to pay your 10,000 shillings? And since the licensing started, has it actually impacted on your numbers in terms of number of registration and the number of registrars, or it has depleted your registrars because some cannot find their 10,000 shillings?
Okay, I hope I'll not have a war with Drake. Okay. It became effective in September last year. The law was in debate because in Kenya, any law has to have public participation. So it was in early last year, there was public participation on the law, and then it became effective from September. The impact part, I think, it has not impacted on the numbers because we reduced prices in January. So I think it was a carrot and stick. The price went down. We are $10 and below per domain. So I don't know if we are benefiting from the price, but I've not seen a reduction in numbers because of the licensing. Although because it's a continuous process, maybe when when I enforce it within a month or so, I may be able to see the effect of the licensing process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll turn over to Mohammed. Mohammed, you're a registrar across Africa. Across the world. No, we are concentrating on Africa, for instance. What are your difficulties getting accredited in each of the countries? Will you say the process would impact growth in the continent, or is it a hindrance? Is there anything that stops any of the registries, CCTLDs, from accrediting you? Since you are a global registrar, what has it given you any edge whenever you go for accreditation in any country?
Thank you, Mary. So I think that we have discussed with the FTLD to have a chance to talk a little bit about the accreditation process, because many people don't know what does it mean to become an ICANN accredited registrar. And I think that I'm going to take some slides to explain you what does it mean and what the cost of being and keeping your registration up and running. And then I will come on the relationship that we have with the CCTLD in our environment and the facilitation that we have and the way forward. So to be more precise with the term of registrar, a registrar is used to define a party that contract with ICANN and registries. But by extension, these terms have been used now by CC to explain the chain of contract or non-contract party they're using in order to get the service done. It is based on a business model. Some business models are traditional retails. Some others are reseller focused. Some others are low cost, limited service. And you have also brand protection. By brand protection, many people have seen in this new round of new GTLD, we have seen big corporate organizations take their .brand and secure it, like .IBM, .Barclays, you see this company, Apple, they all take their names and brand it, so it's a brand protection. So they're going to use it for their own purposes. You're going to have also niche market like .banks with a very specific and restricted specification in order to sell a .bank. You have also some registrars that are single TLD oriented, and you also have registrars who are private. Next slide. Next slide, sir.
Who is doing our next slide?
The guy left.
The guy left.
He's fixing the projector.
Huh? He's fixing the projector.
No, he was not that guy.
He can't move. Your cursor is not moving.
So where is these things? I was asking
Where's the
for
pointer?
you. The pointer.
I thought we, okay. Try whether you can move from here. I think it's the last one. No, the other way. Oh.
The pointer.
The thing is
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay. So the second part is give you a more precise picture of the relationship and who is doing what. I can sign agreement with registrars. I can sign agreement with registries. And registrars have to sign an agreement also with the registries. So we have a dual contract for each registry that we're going to sell. We got a contract with ICANN and we got a contract with the registry. So behind us, we got resellers. That is a word that did not exist in the previous ICANN agreement. In the previous ICANN accredited registrar agreement, the term of reseller was not there. So they introduced it. It was a battle, a big fight, because it introduced a name without formally define the contractor relationship that we're going to have between that entity and the entity that is called the registrars. So the relationship between reseller and registrars was not defined, but they defined some contractual stuff that we need to fulfill between the registrar and the reseller. So this is a new notion that have been introduced in the new ICANN agreement, that is the ERA 2013. And you have the registrant who can have an agreement when it get a domain name with the registrar or reseller. But in the contract, the organization that is responsible within ICANN is the registrar, is not the reseller. Okay? So next slide. So a domain name life cycle is like this. It can be like from available to release available, there is a life. When a domain name is registered, you have some days for what we call 5 days at grace period, where when you register a domain name and you don't want to keep it, you can release it for free, and then nobody going to charge you. But there was some abuse in the system that some people are using it. For example, Muniru tried to do a search and try to reserve, for example, muniru.com. I'm a registrar and I'm sniffing and I'm looking, I say, hey, he got interest in that domain. But he did not register. He released it and he just do something else. So some registrar tried to do what, or just some registrant tried to do some preemptive registration to say that, okay, if I take that domain name, maybe in the next 2 or 3 days, Muniru will come back because he did not have a payment available and try to register that domain name. And at that time, he will find that somebody else take it. And what he's going to say, if it is a domain name that means to him, he's going to try to start negotiating, saying that, is that domain is for sale? Can you resell it to me or not? Maybe you don't need it. And then it's another business. So this type of situation occur a lot in the registration of TLD. So some of them start saying that if you do that game, so they start charging you $1 or something like that to avoid this type of abusing registration and release. You register before the 5 days, you release. $0 cost, and then it costs a lot, the system. So after registration, you got an expire period, you got auto-renew grace period, you got redemption period, and you got the pending delay, and that after that, this domain name is free for everybody to release it again. So the contractual party and the compliance try to ensure that all these steps, the way they are defined it in the PDP, in the policy development process, have been respected by all the parties. And this PDP goal is to protect the registry, to protect the registrar, and to protect the registrant, who is the one who owns the domain name, who is the end user, who is not well represented. But the contract ensure that everything is done in order to guarantee that. Next slide. So, so what do we find in this ICANN new contractual agreement? You got data retention specification. This is a big issue. Maybe I'm not spending time to explain to you, but what's going to happen is before registrar keep the data of their customer under the business continuity, the data will be just released back to that organization that's going to continue the work on behalf of the end user. So there is no loss from the perspective of the end user to just become, you know, somebody, a registrar stop doing business and then all the customers are lost. That's what we're avoiding here. And the impact of this specification also and the reaction from some areas due to some law regarding data privacy and how people are going to deal with data. For example, people from European countries say that we don't give the data outside of European Union, so it has to be kept in our environment. And they have to define another organization that is not necessarily the one that I can have appointed to save this data in terms to guarantee this continuity of service. So there is a lot of implication. Africa, we did not hear a voice about it, but in the paper, our laws for data privacy ask us also to keep this data within our region and our country. But in reality, it's different because people are in the learning process and things are not in, on application. Many things are written down but not really fully implemented on the law side. We have a big issue on the WHOIS accuracy specification. I think that this is one of the most challenging things that this industry is facing, is how we're going to be sure that the data we have inside the WHOIS system is accurate. And I think that people from our country, we understand this, why it is important. In the telecommunication area, the regulator have imposed that everybody who want to get a SIM card need to show an ID that is a valid ID so that they will be able to trace and to record whatever that people are going to do with that SIM card. And this is for security purpose, it's for cyber strategy or whatever. But there's a balance to have there, not using this data for other things than just trying to use it in a proper way. So the same things happen in the DNS staff. We're facing the same challenges. And imagine in the new contract, I can ask us to do a verification and a validation requirement. What does it mean? Imagine somebody want to register a domain name, and you want to be sure that he's from Nigeria, he's from Lagos, this is his number, this is his postal address, this is this, and you have to be sure that it's not wrong number, it's not a fake number, it's not a random number. And all these things have become mandatory if you really want to keep your accreditation in place. And you have also how you manage your WHOIS data when people do some search. What are the data that need to be available in the system and so forth. So there's a lot of things like this. There's a 2-page of specification, 3 lines after. Next slide, sir. Thank you. So also they have also some requirement regarding the registrar website. There are some information that need to be there, like we don't want to have renewal the first year. So these are some conditions that need to be there, and the content also need to be guaranteed that it shows what is mandatory for a registrar to be present on the website. A contact, an email, an abuse contact. When I'm lost and I got a problem with you, which email am I going to use to send things like that? So all these things are part of what we call the ICANN contractual program. And what ICANN is doing in order to be sure that all these things are correct in compliance. Am I right or wrong?
A very big department. Even we have a...
He said very big, thank you very much. So it's enough for me. Yaovi from ICANN testified that he is one of the biggest departments in the organization. So what does it mean for them? It means compliance means everybody is playing his role in order to make the system working. And if the system is working, trust is there and the customer will join. End user will feel confident that they cannot be lost when they get a domain name because the system is protecting them. The registrar also know that there will be fair competition. You cannot ask all these conditions to apply to a registrar. All these costs that are the financial implication and their annual fees that they have to pay, everything, and then allow somebody who did not pay any fee, who have no qualification, who have no certification to do the same thing that the registrar. So that's really, it's this system trying to balance that everybody is playing his role. And I think that it was very important. This is what was missing to be implemented at our local level, because I think that this whole history of ICANN need to be seen as a library, as a certification process that every single CCTLD can try to learn from it and try to implement it in order to guarantee that the objective that we get during this process will be the same objective that we're implementing in our countries. And I think that this is only from that starting point that we'll be able to set up a climate of trust between us, between the reseller, between the registrar, and between the registrant and the potential end users. So I think that this is some of the slides we want just to share with you regarding the aspect of registration. And to give you an idea about the financial implication, to become a registrar, you have to get at least $70,000 of asset and an insurance contract covering at least $500,000 for operations. So from all the other aspects, like the technical aspect, the legal aspect, you need really to get people who follow legal issues, because every single day you will have to face inquiries from ICANN, from the end user, from the customer, because this is how it works. Domain name become more and more important for corporate and for companies, so they cannot play game with it. So really need to be in good hands, and legal issue become more and more important in our environment. So coming back to Africa, what have been done is we have talked to AFTLD since the beginning and say that we need a special treatment from African perspective. Some of the CC have answered positively, is here the place to thank, for example, the CO.ZA for allowing the local ICANN accredited registrar in Africa to be accepted without the wave and all these things. So they really facilitate things for African registrar to hook up and become part of these things. So we also have the same treatment on some other CC as well, who did not ask for any condition. They say that since you are an ICANN accredited registrar, you are automatically a registrar under our CC. So it happened for Senegal, for Ivory Coast, and others. So, and I think that here the message is CCTLD have to be seen as a global team that will help facilitate this type of agreement, because trying to negotiate for each 54 CCTLD in Africa is really a big headache. And even I can have raised the same point. Imagine if all registrars have to sign an agreement with all these 600 registries worldwide, it doesn't work. So that's why they just try to aggregate and put a one entry point. And I think that this is an invitation to Paulos to put an entry point and a new rules that your CCs, your members, going to try to follow as a good sign for promoting and give a good, a positive move for domain name registration in Africa. Is if you become an ICANN accredited registrar in Africa, you need to have the door open for you in all CCTLDs in Africa. I think that this is the minimum requirement that we're asking, really, to enable the growth of African registrar. We will have also another incubator program that is very important. We know that it's very difficult to go through this process for somebody who is a reseller to become a registrar. And I can have approached the registrar community to try to work closely together in order to help get what we call the incubator program. This incubation program will allow resellers in all African countries who want to learn and understand how to become a fully fledged registrar in the system, what they need to learn, and credentially how they can reach the technical level, the compliant expertise to become a registrar. And I think that these are the more challenging things: capacity building, incubator program, and trying to have this facilitation from existing CCTLDs. I think that if this happens, we will have a boulevard open for a broad registration of domain name in Africa through existing registrar. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you, Mohammed, for enlightening us on the new RAA. Some of us may not have read it, and the fact that two messages is given to us. One is capacity building to grow the number of registrars and encourage people to become resellers. Just like Kenya is doing, they even ask students to become resellers. Okay.
One thing very important that is a real barrier for registration of CC in Africa. If you remember on the resolution that we have from all the conference ministers, we consider the diaspora of being part of Africa and all the countries. Putting the barrier of local presence as a minimum requirement for registration in every single African country break the rules of opening up for diaspora to get their domain name available. This is something that was raised at the South Africa meeting. It was brought up and people put it in the recommendation because the diaspora was a 16 region in Africa and they have to be taken care in the process. But if you put a local presence as a condition to get a domain name, if I'm a Kenyan and I'm living in the US, I want to get my KE because I'm a Kenyan. But I'm from the diaspora, but I cannot give you a local address because I'm not here in Kenya. The same thing applies to Senegalese or whatever. So CC have to think about these things, and I think it's very important that they try to comply with the role of the African Union because the diaspora was not taken into account with the restriction that they have put in place.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for contribution, questions. We have listened to our panelists. You've heard what they do in the various environment community, and you can also share, you can make a comment of what you do in your own community or your own nation, and ask question where you want to ask question. It's open. Okay, Mark.
Mark Elkins, DNS Africa. Kenya, so apart from being accredited by the registry, you're now paying a license, you're now having to be licensed. I assume that implies you have to give them money to get a license. Apart from the license, what do you get, what else do you get in return?
Okay, all right. Is there any?
Okay, my name is Adik Mboti from Internet Solutions, Kenya. Mine is just a clarification. Who owns internet?
I do.
No, you can't be.
Thank you. Any other question before? Yes, Abibu.
Okay, Abibu from .tz. I just wanted to give a comment regarding the closed deregistration. This basically has been a historical issue that, for instance, if we have a dispute with the .com, .com is based on the US laws, so it becomes difficult in terms of administration. And for the registries, the reason for local presence or local representative came from this understanding that if a diaspora maybe registers a domain and there is no local contact, if there is a dispute with that domain, then it becomes difficult in terms of administration. So it might look as if it is closed, but what I'm saying for the case of diaspora and whoever who is not a diaspora, the issue of having an administrative contact based in the country, but the domain owner based somewhere else is critical or is important. So basically it's like half open, it's not full closed. If you are diaspora, you have relatives within the country, so you can register a domain, but specify the administrative contact who is based in the country, so that in case of any admin issues related to the domain, you don't have to make calls outside of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we take these three questions. Mohammed, you are going to answer who owns the internet, as well as the comment from Abibu. Yeah, and Lucky, diasporans registration. I think your own is open. Those that you are foreign registrars. Have you had any case of dispute, and how was it handled? Because I know, okay, all right then. So you can answer that as well. Okay, thank you, Dreg.
Okay, I think we'll start by understanding why the licensing framework was put there. Yes, at the end of the day, what looks like you're getting as a registrar is just the license. But and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Communications Authority, so I shall not be quoted as a representative, but from my understanding of the whole licensing framework, one, that we know the domain name is actually a resource, it's a national resource. The CCTLD is a national resource that is available for the public to use for the public good. So therefore the government has got to be involved one way or the other to ensure, one, sustainability of the same, two, availability of the same resources, that the general public can also access that. And I think stemming from what past experiences have been, and of course now we're getting cases of cybersecurity where when you have an issue, for example, today when you have an issue with your Gmail account, who do you talk to and which government laws then apply? So in terms of that introduction of the licensing framework for the registrars specifically is to ensure that the government can easily protect by collecting information about this particular person who is registering domains, because they've been delegated to administer, to support, to do everything with that particular domain. So it's basically collecting that information, and that in case there will be any problem, they know where to get, because we've had in the past, and I think when you balance the compliance aspect of ICANN versus the licensing framework in Kenya, I think they are similar in one way or the other, to ensure, one, compliance, two, to ensure that even the data protection and everything then continues thereafter, that you know where to find that information. So I think in Kenya we are calling it licensing framework, and you're getting a license. You pay the 10,000 shillings for to get the license, to actually prove that you exist as a company, and there are documents that you submit over and above what you submit to KENIC, because KENIC now is handling the technical support. But then that ensures the government aspect of it, of ensuring that, one, the person who is doing the registration of the domains is known to the government, because that has been a challenge in the past. So yes, you only get a license, but with the license comes all these other information, because you've got to make annual returns also to the government. And yep.
Thank you very much. Mohammed, I would answer some other questions and add to what she has said.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one, who owns internet? So I think that it's the biggest company that we have now on earth, and the shareholders are these 7 billion people that represent the globe. So it doesn't mean that we all have the same share. So be careful. But I think that it was just for, but I think it's a very nice and open question. We all are part of that, and CCTLD play a great role as well as part of this. The internet is just a combination and a sum up of all these initiatives, so we cannot give it to somebody only. To answer the question of Abibu. Abibu, you know that in this in this domain name business, what you have said regarding .com is not necessarily happening that way. If you got a case court in the US about a domain name, the court can direct to the registry to shut down the domain name that is part of this abuse. They can also ask the registrar to shut down the domain name. If there is a case of a .com, even in Tanzania, the local court, if you ask the registrar, who is a local organization inside the country, because we have to be clear, I'm talking about the registration of registrants who are citizens from that country or who are from the diaspora. They need to go through a registrar. These registrars have to comply with the local rules. And if there is a court case, they can ask for the registrar to shut down the website. It can be sought at that way. It can be sought at the registry level. If you decide to open up your TZ to other registrar worldwide, if there is an issue locally, if your court decides something, I mean, you will not wait for the registrar to shut down the website of these end users who is somewhere else in the diaspora. So you will just automatically do stuff. So what I'm saying is these ways to sort out rules and dispute resolution on that case. It's not an argument to just say that because you are outside of the country, you need to have somebody who represents you locally. You don't need to. I mean, I'm not going to give somebody the right to shut down my business if this is important for me. It has to be held by myself. So the question of opening up and giving the right to registrars to hold that responsibility is part of what I mean, it is how it works even for the GTLD. Why not for the CCTLD? Because at the CCTLD level, the CC is under the rule of one country, so we don't see something preventing to apply rules inside the country, even for registrars who are not inside the country. And I think that it's important that we take it that way. There is many pro and cons opening up or not, but what I'm saying is not pro and cons. People from the diaspora have the right to get their domain name under the country where they're supposed to live in. It's not just like a gift we're giving to them. It's a right. They have the right to get these numbers and these names.
Okay, thank you. Lucky.
I think one of the things, Chair, that I am noting that becomes very critical here, emanating from the comments that have been made from the panelists there, is we have the issue around protection of the data. We need to find a consistent way that applies across the continent, whereby we have a protection of personal information. In South Africa in particular, we have already a POPI Act which talks to the protection of personal information. And this also cascades down to our registrars on how they handle that information of the end users, and to make sure that it's handled according to the Act, such that that laws, prevails, when there is any doubt. And also this follows through to what I was raising yesterday on the harmonization of policies. We do have this serious challenge as a continent, as a gathering seated here, that we need to come up with a position on how best we can address these issues and matters and agree on them, and not find ourselves talking about them, but we need to agree about them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have, we can take another question here. Abib, we want to comment again, all right?
No. I have a question to Lucky. From your presentation, I didn't see any second level domain category for the government. I don't know if it's there. And if it is there, do all registrars have right to register the domains under it? Thank you.
Work in progress for us. We are increasing our second level domains, I must say. As a central registry, we are going to be quite big. We are currently in negotiations with law.za, but your gov.za, which is your government second level domain, is currently handled by SITA, which is a state information and technology agency. However, it has become quite clear that that is not their forte. They are not too interested in even offering the services that we are currently providing as a registry. Thus, hopefully by next year, we'll be showing additional numbers of our names that we'll be hosting as a registry. Will be certainly, definitely a very big registry. We're quite proud about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Abib,
a follow-up question. A follow-up question. It looks like they have a special registrar for the gov.za. Any reasons for that?
Is what? Can you
this?
Speak?
Oh, sorry.
Can you speak into the?
I'm saying, from his response,
yes,
it looks like there is a special registrar for the .gov.za. Are there reasons for that?
This is pretty much historical. when .za came into being, everybody took a piece of it and the second level domain names and built on it, and government also equally took its own and identify an entity that they felt they would trust in hosting your gov.za. And over the years, I think that the trust within government has grown to recognize ZACR as a trusted entity. We are writing our history of internet and domain names in South Africa to show the journey that we have traveled from somewhere in the 90s where there was total mistrust and on those people who ended up with the .za then, because it was in the hands of an individual. But over the years, as this handling of the .za regulator, ZEDNA, who is now directly responsible for that TLD. I don't know if Mark wants to comment further here. Mark,
please.
At one point, he had this TLD under his table.
No, just the co.za part. Mark Elkins, DNS Africa. The ZA domain came to South Africa because the academic people wanted to have ac.za. So they brought it to South Africa as ZA, and they immediately took their AC part and started playing with that. Then they thought that other people might like to play as well, or to have a part. And that is why in South Africa, literally every second level was managed by a different entity. And eventually the person running ZA himself felt that it wasn't right that he should make decisions about ZA. So he started making an organization with all parties involved. And then the government sort of decided to, the South African government decided to and do the same sort of thing and kind of overtook that process, which is where the ZA DNA came from. So ZA DNA really is just the .za part of the whole infrastructure. And one of the things that the ZA DNA decided is that a centralized registry made a lot more sense than a lot of individuals. It would be easier to have a better standard or a single standard. And that's why Uniforum changed its name to ZACR, South African Central Registry, of which Lucky is now the CEO. And yeah, otherwise, yes, I agree with what Lucky said.
Thank you. We want to. I was just trying to call on NIRA to share, and Sunday is raising his hand. President NIRA, please.
Thank you, Chair and past President NIRA. Two interventions. The first is to congratulate the South Africans. Not many people know that DNS predates the World Wide Web. So if you had a domain name and you were running the beautiful Unix to Unix copy protocol, when mails come in for your country, everything comes to your server first. So it was more of a liability than an asset to run it. So I didn't blame the AC.za guys who decided to take the academics alone and leave the rest junk for some people to put under their table. The South Africans, probably being the oldest owners of domain name in the continent, had the luxury of, I think, exchanging the host.txt file instead of doing name lookup query. So once again, congratulations. Now to the subject matter, we have a very interesting situation in Nigeria. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian IT Development Agency, which gives NIRA the rights to administer .ng. NIRA, on the other hand, redelegates the management of gov.ng back again to the Nigerian IT Development Agency, which again redelegates the management of the federal government names to another entity called Galaxy Backbone. Of course, all these registrars still talk to the NIRA registry anyway, but the Galaxy backbone only manages the federal government.gov.ng registrations. The state governments and local governments are again managed by the Nigerian IT Development Agency. Of course, registrars licensed by NIRA can register gov.ng domains, but these are subject to validation and approval by the Nigerian IT Development Agency. So when those registrars make the applications, although the registry is automated, those domains are put on exclusion waiting list, subject to that manual approval, at which point it is propagated to DNS. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting scenario in Nigeria. Can I ask can we look at what will help us more to grow our registry? Accrediting resellers, organizing the resellers in particular, because it's important that we identify these resellers. And sometimes, registrars will not even know, because I think, Sunday, am I right that you give them EPP as well? The resellers, do they have EPP?
Yes, the system that NIRA runs, COCA, allows a registrar set up an account, manage funds, do transfers for resellers, so that the resellers can talk with EPP directly to the registry. Some registrars may also have their resellers talk to their own system by EPP, which then talks to the registry. So it's whatever business model the registrar chooses to operate. But our system in Nigeria allows both variants.
Yes.
I'll point this to KENIC and Drake. Yesterday, Kariba mentioned about a target of 5 billion Kenyan shillings, regards to K.K domain. As I track back, when you compare .k domains and .co.za domain, as Kenya, we are really behind. So, as KENIC and Drake, what are your short-term plans and long-term plans, to boost our .k domains? Or are there any issues that maybe, are there any challenges that you face that makes Kenyan .k domain lagging behind in terms of numbers and stuff? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Kelvin from Multimedia University of Kenya. Now, my first question is, how are we linking with academia to make sure they are at par with the changes that are going on in the domain name system? Number two, can Mr. Abdallah elaborate more on how they are linking up with university students to make them resellers? And lastly, maybe just like a comment, as we try to foster of these domestic domain names like .ke, .za, we should be aware that most university students are the ones that build these websites. And most of the time when they host, they go for the .com domain. And therefore, I think they should be a target market, and they should be elaborated about some of these domestic domain names and what they really stand for and what they mean. Thank you.
Mike, thank you. One more. Where is the person? Alaji, to the right. Is there anybody here to the left?
Yes. Yes, Francis Care.
Okay.
My question is, my concern is about when we are talking about internet, especially in Africa, we need also to consider the internet because internet is too expensive for African nations. What is your take on that? What is your take?
Mohammed, internet is too expensive for Africa. What do we do? How do we bring down the price, right? Okay. Uncle Ni.
Yes, my question is to Mohammed, Alaji. Now that you have 10,000 or so, 1,000 or so registries, how are the registrars, accredited registrars, going to cope? Are they still going to sign individual agreements? I know you wrote a paper on this thing. Are they going to pay individual to each of these registries, deposit money, and so on? How is all this going to unfold? Are there any plans to make it a little easier for up-and-coming registrars? So I thought I would raise that for you.
Yeah, good question. And I want to add, how would you, Mohammed, will you sign agreement with every CC in Africa? That is in addition to what Uncle Ni has asked. Well, would we sign registry agreement with every CC because you are a global registrar? Right. So you answer that together with. Can we start with Drake?
Okay, I think my two questions that I'll answer, and I think Abdallah will also take up on the same to add on it. On domain name growth as a strategy, I think our general feel, especially in the .ke environment, has been the availability and reliability of our domain name. And we did realize over a period of time that the registrants felt that the registry was not reliable. Yet, we run a similar platform for the registry, COCA, as Nigeria and as many other countries do, and it's very reliable. So the gap that we did realize in between was the registrar. And so the registrars not understanding, we had the accreditation, yes, but the registrars would quickly, for the quick money and everything, because our domain names were expensive to start us off, and two, even the process of registering that domain name, because we had not automated the systems and all that, became a bit more complicated for the registrars. So the registrars were the ones informing the public to opt for the different options, and therefore our growth was not there. So as a short-term strategy, what did Drake together with KENIC do? Over the past 2 years, we've seen automation of registrars to just get that I can register the domain anytime and any place from wherever I am. Two, also to allow registrars, to allow registrants to have full access to their domain names. We've had challenges over and over. Today, when you want to register, to transfer a .com from one registry to the other, all you need to go, whatever platform you have, you go to request your EPP code, it's sent to your email, and that is done. In the past, for us, it's had to be, you have to have a conversation first with the current registrar to agree for them to transfer, and they would refuse to transfer for one thing or the other, or the process would be a bit complicated. So we have ensured that is happening, and we continue to ensure compliance for that. Of course, also compliance in terms of information being accurate for the registrant, because that has been the problem. We are getting, as he's mentioned, the university students going to register.com for people when they're doing their websites for them or whatever other domain name that is available, that as opposed to .ke. So for that, we are taking those measures. Again, in terms of the long term, we realized, looking around, and we realized that we're competing with the other environment, the other domain names and everything. And for the first time, we started offering our domain names for below $10. So to ensure that it's affordable, that it's accessible to everyone and that. So again, over and over, as we've seen, jointly, Drake, KENIC, and the other players coming together, academia involved at the same level that Drake is involved with KENIC, academia is involved through KENET. We have KENET representatives sitting at the board level. They are also members of KENIC to ensure that the growth in the academia also happens in that. So in the long term, we hope that with the continuous education, with the continuous growth, focusing on our registrar business, because we realize again that we know, as a registry, it's not selling directly to the registrant. So it's to empower the registrar. And you've had Abdallah mentioning about the quarterly breakfast meetings that happen with the registrars, just to empower the registrars, because when your channel is strong to sell, then the growth will therefore follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add more, Abdallah?
Thank you, Drake. They have done a good pitch for KENIC. Now, on the growth, yes, we have 1 million target in the next 3 years, and I've been telling my friend Lucky here, we met in Lesotho last year, and I told him I'm picking on him. And then we actualize it by making a strategic plan. It's not only a wishful thinking. We have a clear strategic plan, which the board approved in January. Implementation, full implementation of the same was hampered because we had, I think, a 1 or 2 month war on the digital migration, and the media to be able to show this is through the television. So we put on hold a big part of the marketing campaign. But in the next 2 weeks, you are going to see us on all medias, digital, TV, radios, and so on. Now, as Drake has said, we did a price reduction, which has seen a steady increase in domain uptake. So, and also we are doing partnership with the various institutions. We are now negotiating a partnership with Kenya National Chamber of Commerce to be able to access the SMEs within their membership. We are also doing an MOU with the Headmasters Association so that all the primary schools and secondary schools are put. We had a good engagement with them when they had their annual meeting in Mombasa. We were there, and the outcomes are fruitful. We are doing an MOU with them so that schools can be put. And I commend our registrars. What they have done is they have put added value on the domains. What they have done is they have made cheap websites so that when you buy a domain, they can also do a good priced website for you. Those are good for schools. Now about the students, Kenya Education Network is on the board, KENET. But besides that, we have a clear strategy of now engaging each university and accessing their ICT students so that they also know that there's money in domain, and also they can do web designs and so on for the various SMEs which will be getting from Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. I hope.
Okay. Thank you very much. You've done justice to it. And over to Mohammed, please. You have about 3 or so questions.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you, Ni, for raising one point that is really a critical one for scaling up. You remember we talk about, every time you sign an agreement with a new GTLD, even many CCTLD ask for deposit. So you imagine what does it represent if you really want to scale. So even having this agreement with these 23 GTLD before was a headache. Now we jump up to 600 TLD. So we need to thank the African community because we raised this point on behalf of the whole community. We are not the only one facing this problem. And we help the organization, ICANN, to put this question on the table because the question of increasing the number of registries and how registrars are going to deal with them was a question that was not sought out. It was not solved. In terms of, imagine 1,000 registries, everybody asks you for $1,000 to put in their account before you start registering. It means $1 million for just a registrar. So it means it's not something feasible. So if we look at our situation in Africa, where we are trying to challenge the number of registrars we want to increase, our goal is how to reduce the barrier of entry, not to increase them. So reducing barriers means first a collaboration with CCTLD through AFTLD to reduce the cost for starting working with all CCTLD as you suggest. Like having one agreement with AFTLD will open up with all the members of CCTLD. We know that all the African are not members of CCTLD, but at least it opened up all the members of AFTLD. This is going to facilitate the incubator program to start being operational. So from the ICANN perspective, I think that this discussion is on the table. And ICANN have worked out to set up a system that's going to be an entry point for this registry to be on board. And I think that this one going to facilitate the interaction between the registrars and the registries. So it just showed that the issue we are raising during our meetings are the issues that you're going to find also in Asia, in Latin America, in other parts of the world. We are the first one to define a strategy that was for ICANN. It has been replicated with Latin America and others. So we have been also thinking about how we're going to leverage the number of registrars in our region. We draft a paper. NIRA was initiating it. We collaborate together with that, and Alan Aina. So it become an ICANN paper to think about how we're going to help get a fund for the insurance, not asking every single resellers to go and looking for the insurance of $500,000. If we want to help increase the number of registrars, we should find a way to get a fund that's going to be for the insurance, that will cover the insurance for all these new incubator program, and also help also get a fund also that will be the counterparty or the deposit for this new accredited registrar to start operating without asking them to put $1,000 in each account. VeriSign, PR, and all this side. So they will never start. So I think that this is a very important program that need to be covered by IF registrar to help. And also with AFTLD, we need really to find ways that partners who want to help this community will find a partner who can hold this question of the insurance fund for the whole community and the question on the deposit for the registry. I think it's the last point on just one thing also between the CCTLD and the regulation. I have to be clear. In many African countries, it was written in the Telecom Act or ICT Act that the regulator have the supervision of the domain name system, supervision, not operations.
Yes.
Many regulators are in conflict with existing CCTLD because they take the word supervision to operations. And that's not what they're asking. The role of regulators is not to operate. If not, they will not be regulators. If they are doing wrong, who's going to be the one who help intervene and really sort out the problem? You are the regulator, you regulate. You design, you designate somebody and you sign an agreement with them. If you go to France, the Minister of Industry sign a contract with the organization that is running the .fr.
Yes.
If you go in some other in New Zealand, that's what they said. In many other countries, yeah, you're the regulator, sign an agreement with the existing CCTLD. So for CCTLD who are in that situation, they are in a statu quo, in a dormant, very conflicting things, ways that will not allow we registrars to work, in a how to say it, healthy environment. So what we ask you is try to negotiate, anticipate the discussion, propose a plan to the regulator to have a way to cooperate in terms of give them the supervision, but continue to run the operations. This is the only way we can find out a solution in many African countries. And this situation is not helping us getting domain names available because everybody is standing his point, waiting for something to happen in the next 5 years. But sometimes nothing happens. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether Sunday wants to add anything on this discussion. Okay. You want to say something? Dreg?
No, I just wanted to say on that note that Mohammed was finishing on, to applaud Kenya because Kenya has moved in that way, that the registry now is running independent of the government. The Communication Authority does not participate in the operations, however, it supervises, and I think we need to applaud Kenya for that. And for any other registries that want to learn from it, we are open to share the experience, how painful it's been to get to where we are. Thank you.
Except for licenses.
I agree.
What about the licenses?
My question.
It's part of supervision.
It's part of supervision, the license?
Yes.
Okay. So there are no enforcement provision in the license.
No.
There are conditions.
Yes.
Okay. Who would enforce the conditions? The regulator. Who gave you the license?
Actually, it's in partnership with KENIC. It's KENIC to enforce.
Okay.
Yes.
You are still there? Okay.
Two finger. Alaji, there's one more thing that you develop which you need to point out, which is the common gateway to the registries. If you have 1,000 of them, I can't establish EPP and test with all of them, right? And I think the same applies to the the CC registries. As global registrars, I'm not sure how I'm going to test EPP with all of them. I want to test with one gateway, which then allows me. So I want you to elaborate on that. Yeah.
Mohammed, please.
Well, I think that the point you're raising have been raised for the within ICANN. They have some development that people are developing this interface to allow this to happen, and I have heard also that they talking about the willingness to work on this gateway with the different CCTLDs as a platform. I think that it's a project that needs to be developed, and I think that it's a missing point in our infrastructure because it can be a way to develop skills very quickly within the AFTLD members, and also to allow all the other members who want to interact with the community of CCTLD to make it very easily. If not, the time to proceed will be very long depending on the skill of individually each of them. But if you put a gateway, this is going to reduce the complexity of the system to just one interface. And I said it's going to be much easier to train people, to have more people trained in the system, get capacity, and then try to develop these things. It's the same approach that I can have done right now, and I think that the system might be available very soon in order for such approach. So I think that Africa have to take advantage of the situation and the timing, and I think that it will help also the CCTLD and the new resellers who want to become registrar to be in a situation that is more easier for them to catch up and to get into the system, because for them it's going to be just one contact, one test, one accreditation, and then they will be able to hook up and interact with all the CC that exists. But maybe it's a dream, but I think that is feasible. I don't think it's a dream.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a dream, really. We are currently testing that gateway, and we are calling it the Shared Registry Services Platform. Ideally, it's almost like walking into a mall, and that mall has a multitude of services and offerings, and CCTLDs at the same place, GTLDs, you can shop, buy what you need, put in your shopping basket. Okay. It will also have its own revenue system for collection over the continent. This is why earlier on this morning I was asking if we can use livestock, which is commodities trading, that we should be able to domain the undomained, whereby ensuring that our commodities can be used to acquire a domain name. Yeah, it's in the test. It should be up and running soon.
Okay.
And also I think that the expertise around EPP should be, it won't be discussed in the future. Every single CCTLD need to be, fully compliant and train their people and their reseller and partner. So we're expecting ICANN to be really supportive for this training that we want to have at the continental level for all CCs and for all registrar and the incubator program. Because youth people are expecting to get jobs out of this, opportunity out of this, and I think that this is where they should go. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? We're rounding up, and we want to say something. Yes, Bob is saying we're in between the tea break. Oh yeah, can you say please? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Mhamilawa from .tz. I want to direct my question to the lady there. What are your thoughts, and maybe perhaps Mohammed, what are your thoughts on having a legislation, or a regulation from an act of parliament that requires or that makes it mandatory for entities doing business in Kenya or in your country to register and use your respective country top-level domains? Do you think that would make your business any easier? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the quick and straight answer for that is whether it has happened in any other country. Legislation to force somebody to do something, we have had that discussion over and over in Kenya, and we found that the easier way out is to have a partnership, not in legislation, and that's why KENIC is actively pursuing the Registrar of Companies to have that as a resource available there, because the problem with the first item, I can get it and not use it, and therefore sustainability becomes a problem. So what we are looking over to do is that partnership with the government entities that register the businesses, that at that particular point you can understand what the value of the domain name is, and you can get it at that particular point. So in terms of legislation, we've tried that path. We have not gotten very good feedback on that, and we've gone the MOU way.
Okay, thank you. He asked a question that he said we have not answered his question. Can you say your question again that we have not answered?
It was about the internet, too expensive in Africa. Yeah.
Okay, quick comments, 20 seconds for that lady and 1 minute for the other. 20 seconds is, I think that the legislation part is very important, because what's happening now is everybody has a number, that is his mobile phone. What we want to do is next coming years to be in a situation where everybody who do an operation or activity or something like that would get a name under the domain name space. Because identity is very important, and it has to be part of the scheme. If the country starts thinking like this, it will be part of the registration process of a company or group or whatever, that when they give you a number that is the registration ID, they're going to give you a name. The name will be registered. So it's just a question of evolution, but we will get there. And I think that we need to anticipate and to push for this process to become more and more easier. Company will need to have their website, their names, and their ID available at the registration. This is how we're going to increase the competitiveness of our businesses, because they need to have exposure. So for the internet access for the other guy there, so you say that internet is expensive in Africa. Well, it's a statement, right? Or is that a question?
You asked a question.
It was not a question, guy.
No, he said, how can we bring down?
How can we bring it down?
The cost.
Okay.
The cost
Since there are many actors who intervene in it, you know that they have some greedy guys who live somewhere. You remember the time where in the internet, when you connect, nobody gonna count the number of packets you send and charge you per packet. Imagine that if internet, they start charging you. Every email you send, you pay something. You know what happened in that area? We brought people who charge per packet into an internet environment, and they bring with us that greedy part. But in the past, remember when there was a lease line, internet lease line for ADSL, for whatever, or dial-up, did you find any limitation on the bandwidth you were using? No. Who bring that? The telcos. Yeah, the mobile operators bring the fact that every single packet you're going to pay for it. So now they're going to give you, a packet for $10. It's going to be 1 gig. When you finish it, you have to buy another 1 gig. This did not exist initially in the internet. So they changed the dynamic, and now what's happening is for the usage, they did not simulate the usage, because if I want to just if I just want to watch an educational program using my YouTube program, if I buy a $5 things, so it's going to end up, before I end up my cost. So this situation of charging people based on bandwidth in Africa was something that put us behind from the situation where we got at the beginning of the internet. Ask for Dr. Nee and all the others who were running ISP at that time. They never charged people per packet. So in the next future, imagine that every single SMS you're going to send, every single email, you're going to be charged for it. Every click on a website, you're going to be charged for it. What does it mean? This is what's going to happen. It has start. This is why the internet is expensive. Because there are some people who know how to charge and who take control of the situation. Seriously. And this is one of the explanation I can give to you. Okay?
Okay. We are running out of time, and Kevin is not comfortable with that, and the tea is getting cold. I don't know whether your question is very, yeah. Press on the button. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, my question is almost related to the previous the previous speaker. I think we now have fiber optic. Before fiber came, we are using satellite, and we were actually told when fiber comes, the internet will be cheaper. Everything will be cheaper, but we've not seen any change. In fact, it's going even higher. The second comment is that about the uptake of CCTLD, Kenyan.ke. I'm a developer and a reseller, for example. People are cagey about using .ke, especially on domain mails, because of reliability, because of infrastructure, downtime. For example, it's better using Yahoo or Gmail for your communication rather than our domain mail, because at times it goes down and you never receive mails even for some time. But if there's an improvement from the registrar, I think it should inform people. Other people should know that the system has improved. So they start using it, because it's a problem also in doing business. For example, some institutions and organizations worldwide, when you communicate to them with the Gmail or Yahoo, they don't acknowledge your communication. They like you to use your domain DNS email so that you can engage. So it becomes becoming a challenge. Another issue is the government. Some times back, we heard that .ke registrar was discussing with the government, so that most government institutions and some projects are using .org and .com. Yes, they are in government. What has the registrar done to actually inform the government to change, to encourage these government entities to use .ke? Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Sunday's hand.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's unfair in Africa to keep saying two things. The internet is not cheaper. Internet is much cheaper. What we are able to do now is far more than we were able to do before. We may still be paying the same, but we are able to get faster speed, more reliability. For some of us, it's nostalgic. We came here to do AFNOG in 2006, and I think we were sharing 128K bandwidth among ourselves in that workshop. Today in this meeting, we have a gigabit link, courtesy of Liquid, in the same room that we were struggling with 128K or 256K 9 years ago. So internet is cheaper in Africa. The second thing is, where are our priorities? In Africa today, we fight more wars than build fiber. So our priorities much more in Africa. There are much more places in conflict in Africa today than spending the same resources on developing infrastructure. So it's where our priorities are.
Okay, just one point on the tariff, just to let you understand how difficult is it to talk about the price in Africa. You know, when you use a local call, when you get your cell phone and you call another person internal in an area, it costs cheaper, right? When you call somebody from one city to another, it's more expensive. When you call somebody outside of the country, it's much more expensive. So the telecom operators know really how to tariff the phone calls. That's their specialty. When it comes to data, when you buy a 1 gig connection data to an operator, he did not differentiate between you connecting to your local server for this 1 gig or you using this 1 gig to go cross using the fiber optic that legitimate the higher cost of the connectivity, because they say, operators say that 60% of their price is usually due to high international connectivity using the optical fibers. But if the traffic is local, why don't they charge you as local traffic? If it is international traffic that get outside of the network, why don't they charge you something else that's going to be higher? And for people who try to develop software and application, it will be very challenging for them to get this connectivity working 24 hours on the network and being charged the same way that somebody who just hook up their server that is outside of the US. So this point have to be raised in front of the telco operators to reduce the dynamics of the high pricing into our different environment. What I'm saying is not a joke. This is what's happening. Okay? Just another thought for that.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have had a good engagement this afternoon. If there are still questions, we can take it offline. We are going for tea break, and you can also discuss with the presenters. They will be willing to answer most of our questions. I want to thank everybody. You have been a good audience, and I didn't see many people praying, so it was good. And please, can we give a round of applause to the presenters? Thank you. Thank you.